It's extremely rare for a new, truly innovative car to enter the market. And then it's affordable and comes from Volvo. Yes, I was surprised too, but the EX30 here, it offers just that. And why? Because Volvo was incredibly bold and declared, we are throwing everything old out the window and are genuinely committed to thinking in a radically new, innovative way. I will demonstrate it for you now. Yes, I know design is a matter of taste, but to be completely honest with you, I like it. I believe it's quite cool because it's simply so neatly put together and it's absolutely awesome. So the LED lights in front, they're super cool. The iconic Thor hammer. I might be a bit biased there. I'm a big Marvel fan myself. And over here, I've also noticed the tail lights at the back. I think they look quite stylish at first glance. And I believe many of you will like this car, right? Let me know down in the comments. One issue with electric vehicles so far has been that with the smaller and mid-sized electric cars, you almost couldn't get any towing capacity. Only with the large, premium, expensive cars. However, here it starts with a towing capacity of 1 ton, and in the largest configuration, you can get up to 1.6 tons. That's really good to start with. Here you nicely open the trunk with a button. It opens electrically, of course, and so here as well, it provides a really nice convenience. Yes, and of course, one must say it's actually a crossover SUV, which means 318 liters of trunk volume. But the great part is we now have these typical carry-on suitcases here. Here and also right here, our sturdy equipment case. And it's really, truly cool the way you can carefully fit them into this specially designed recessed floor, just like that, perfectly. Then they won't mess around with those crazy acceleration figures and all that around here. And you can also make the floor here so absolutely flat. And then, well, you can easily load through, and then you actually get a larger trunk volume. And for those who say, I have truly no idea how much fits in there, those are the kind of very fine details Volvo has thought of. They show here what all can fit in, not everything at once, of course. Or maybe, that's indeed an important question too, does it have a front trunk, frank, or as we affectionately call it here, a frunk? Yes, it does, but if you're thinking you can fit a lot in there, no dice, that's not the case, but hey, at least that's something. I found the first moose. Turns out you've hidden 2 moose in the car here. Let's see if we can spot them both. Here's the first moose already. All right, I'm getting back to the point now. You see, you can at least get the charging cable in here, and I must say, that's the very least, in my opinion. That's the bare minimum, because having the charging cable in the trunk, yeah, and then you've got luggage in there, and dealing with that, it's just annoying. That's exactly why, okay, good, solid, it's not just any storage space, but the cable goes right in here, and that's really good because... So, please come over here quickly if you would. I really want to show you this particular door in great detail because it truly exemplifies extremely well what this entire car is all about, actually. First point, minimalism. What does that mean? Well, take a look at this. There aren't even buttons for the window controls or anything on here. Now, there's really just a single handle left to open the door. There's a tiny little compartment right here, and that is essentially all there is. So, it means, and this is quite an important aspect for vehicles, Volvo was simply bold here, deciding to radically reduce everything. Surely this has benefits. You save on control units, you save cables needing to be laid into the door, and so on. But these are the kind of things where we just say, okay, we want affordable electric cars. Well, then one has to consider where to cut costs. Tesla has shown the way, embracing minimalism, reducing all the buttons, everything. Well, and Volvo seems to have taken a leaf out of their book showing similar courage. I really think it's quite great, yes, but what I truly find brilliant is it always seems exceptionally high quality. It's not like you're saving and end up with some sort of discount cheap car, but what I see in others, I see here, cheap plastic elements or piano black or something, yes, that really does not feel nice. This right here is certainly a nice, very soft fabric, yes, and yes, okay, this is indeed very extraordinary. But these are all sustainable materials. I'll delve into that a bit more shortly. These are all recycled, sustainable materials. But what I really appreciate is that, despite that, at the points we touch the most, like here where you rest an arm, have frequent hand contact, or here where you open it. It's such a beautiful, high quality, superior handle. And right here, it actually feels quite good. So right in the perfectly right places, but then, well, yes. A good texture and feeling integrated despite all the recycling and minimalism. What does all this minimalism mean if everything is being stripped away? Do I have to give up everything then? Well, you have to decide that for yourself, but I lack a bike display before me. Much fuss with Tesla initially. Model 3, Model Y, it can't be. I can't see the speed and everything here. Yes, everything's now finally ended up here, right in this very center console. And for instance, a glove compartment that you suddenly open by pressing a button here, and now it's in the middle instead of on the passenger side. Completely innovative, yes, but they've clearly drawn quite a lot of inspiration. The center console located right down here, yes, of course, it is indeed quite minimalist, yet stylish again. I haven't missed anything so far. Up front, there are even 2 wireless smartphone chargers, and again, so cleverly smart. There are these slats below, so you can slide them in to ensure they don't move around during the drive when you accelerate hard or something, encountering problems with it tossing back and forth. And here, you can place a second one. Somehow with the Apple iPhone, I'm facing this issue where somehow the NFC chip and the wireless charging don't work. I've experienced this issue in several different vehicles. Well, thankfully, there's always the option to flip this particular thing up right here. So, there. And then we have 2 USB-C ports right here. That's where I plugged in my cable. There, I can plug it in here, can close it up, but they've also thought about adding this little notch here. All right, can't lay it down here now, so I'll just put it in this way then. Well, yeah, that's precisely how it is, honestly. And then it actually goes really far here, and over there it even manages to go straight through a hole to reach the back seats. We will return to that intriguing topic in just a brief moment, so here they are at long last. The buttons exist to raise and also to lower the car windows, but why are there only just 2 of them? Yes, it's like in the ID.3 with this rear button back here. When I press it and the ridge lights up, then I can raise and lower the rear windows. Some won't like that again. Me neither, really. But now that I think about it, how often do I actually roll the rear windows up and down? So here you can't open this anymore. Instead, what happens is the following. By the way, here's the key you'll need. Curious what this key is? It's a unique card that, when pressed against a part of the car, quickly unlocks it for you. Where have we seen this before? But you actually don't even need it. You can in fact pair your smartphone and then the car unlocks automatically. You can also start driving just with the smartphone, and those who still want it must, however, purchase an extra key. And then I can actually do the following right here. Press it. Just like that, the drink holder bar pops out completely. You can place 2 drinks in there, works wonderfully too. And you can even push that back further. Then it could possibly be used as storage space for other things. So definitely some cool ideas again. Even if I go back, then I basically have just a cup holder. And again, it completely folds back in. That's kind of cool, really. Yes, but that's pretty much it for the front here. There are 4 different interior designs. First, there's Indigo, a sporty, exceptionally dynamic interior design concept that features bio-based textiles in dark blue and includes an abundance of recycled materials like the leftovers from jeans production, so fabrics that would, under normal circumstances, be thrown away. So you are actually sitting on what is essentially considered garbage. Yes, Pine's interior, very cozy with ethically sourced wool, recycled polyester for added comfort, and natural flax inlays, is indeed quite inviting and warm. Then Misty presents a uniquely elegant and refined Scandinavian style, with luxurious grey wool padding, including both natural and carefully selected recycled materials. And the padding, contrary to what the name Misty might suggest, is not only dirt repellent, but also cools in the heat and warms in the cold. So it not only looks good, but it is also quite functional. And then there's the equipment we had in our test vehicle. Breeze. Who invents all these unique, intriguing names? Well, I guess there are such peculiar, unusual jobs. So a modern technical look with a pixel pattern. The light blue knitted fabric is made from 100% recycled polyester derived from PET bottles. So take a good sip, toss it in the trash, and then it ends up back in the Volvo EX30. Now I've just adjusted the seat here right in front of me to fit my size perfectly. I am exactly 187 meters in height, and I have to say, at this very moment, I can only just manage to barely sit here in this place with my knees positioned without exerting too much pressure against the seat in front of me. So it's just about manageable, but of course you also have the issue that your feet are quite high. So it's really not that comfortable. That's just the truth of it. And I think that's the biggest point of criticism about the vehicle, that one can really only, with kids it's no problem to take them, but with adults you're pretty much limited to shorter trips. Of course, it depends on how tall the adults are. If you're taking adults as tall as my dear cameraman producer, then it looks something like this. He's just under 2 meters tall, so there's also some storage space here. Yes, you can quite nicely place brochures in right here, tablets, or whatever else you might need to. There's also a small section here for a smartphone, so very nice items, some storage in the door. There's also, I think, some truly, even though they might be considered small and rather short, still conspicuously cozy armrests situated right here. Yes, indeed, and yet another reading lamp. However, for instance, right now there's no central armrest, so while there's an option here to pull out a headrest again in case someone really squeezes in between at the back, but then sadly there's no armrest. So that's just brutally reduced again. So when we carefully take a closer look at the center console from the back side, we mainly observe the window control situated here. Switches, everything functions perfectly well, including 2 USB-C ports as well. I genuinely really do like that. Here also there's a small compartment for sweets or perhaps even for a small phone. And this, once again, is made extraordinarily cute. The center console running smoothly through here allows for yet another one right here. Oh, there's the second moose. Pull out a compartment like this. Maybe you can sort of paper, various packaging and stuff. Then I should now get myself a trash bin or something like that, put a bit of stuff in it and then empty it out and put it back. Is actually quite nice. Now, the point is up here, especially when sitting in the back, you've got this lovely glass panoramic roof. However, you only get that unique feature with the absolute ultra premium trim level option. At the back, on both rear seats, there's an ISOFIX connection present, which is absolutely crucial for securing this child seat here with maximum safety. In the car, so what you can do here often, even with premium brands like Mercedes and so on, is just remove these plastic caps, which then end up rolling around in the car. You're bound to lose them. Here I find it's just elegantly solved again. And here you notice again that at Volvo, the issue of safety and the safety of the family, the children, is of utmost importance because they put a lot of thought into it. Even when you put it back, then you take this tab here, which is a bit stiffer at the front. Yes, it's a bit of a short fiddle, but then you take it, press it back in here, and then the ISO fixes are hidden again. All information, all settings, all relevant things that you want to change on the car, or if you want to interact with the car, it all goes through this one touch screen. I believe it's quite well integrated here into the cockpit. It's really easy to operate and it looks great. It's not the largest, but big enough. So that works for me for now. And there you see again, up here you have all the essential information for driving. Now you see here, I've engaged the parking mode. Here, you also see which seats are not yet buckled up. That's okay for now since we're stationary, but if I put it in gear now... Oh, by the way, they didn't skimp on things like the gear lever or even the turn signal lever, for example. Warm welcome to the Tesla Model 3. Some have indeed complained about it. Volvo didn't take it that far, so now we've engaged the gear. It always shows the speed range here. At 87%, that was around 422 kilometers. What's key here? You have media control instantly. Your phone, your smartphone is integrated and you can access your favorites, make a call to your favorite producer, Max, or someone like that. Though I really don't know, somehow he quite often hangs around my neck, you see. So I have the most important apps here. It changes, they call it a context-sensitive menu. Quite fascinating, really. And since it's all a Google system, I have all sorts of apps on here too. It's not the entire range of apps from the Play Store, but rather this special autoplay store, yet it's really quite cool how it's done. And since Google forms the entire foundation of this system, Google Maps is naturally the navigation you use, which is practically connected to, integrated with the car. So that means I can type in here, yes, and now let's say, by the way, we're in Barcelona, we want to go to Berlin, so really a long distance. And I believe an electric car is truly good only if it manages that you simply enter a destination, no matter how far, no matter how many hundreds or thousands of kilometers. And it tells me precisely when and where I can charge, because if I can't rely on that charging plan and then have to mess around in extra apps, it really becomes unpleasant. And now the system is about to say I need 3 charging stops from Barcelona to Berlin. That's quite a distance. Now let's take a look at the route details here. And what exactly can we see? Yes, for instance, an Ionity charging station is planned to be here. We're charging for 26 minutes there, then another Ionity, 32 minutes, and an Allegro for 15 minutes. And then we'll be in Berlin, arriving with even 43% left. So I actually find that to be quite all right for 1,900 kilometers. Well, whether everything works out with the range, as mentioned, that's something we'll have to find out in a long-term driving test and practical test for sure. But I can start here now and have full navigation with all the bells and whistles right here. And yes, you might have seen it already. I know many of you are quite critical about this. Me too. It moves smoothly, but every now and then there's a slight jerk. So it's not the most efficient. Now, I've researched, and let's dive in quickly, but it's all right. And I actually manage quite well with it. So then we go down here. We have a bar with the most essential functions that one needs quick access to. Whether you want to change the temperature, adjust the seat heating, steering wheel heating, or I want to fiddle a bit with the ventilation because it's blowing too strongly in my face or something, I can adjust all sorts of things here, air quality, etc. And over here, there are more settings for the car. Yes, there's a bit of soft ambient lighting, but just a small amount really. It's hardly worth mentioning really. And then for instance, I can check out the vehicle status right here. I can see I'm switching back to P mode again. There, for instance, you have the option to initiate a software update wirelessly using the built-in cellular connection, just as one would desire nowadays. Then, there's also the option to adjust all sorts of settings. There's a lot really, won't do that again. To initiate action, and you will observe driving details including the fuel consumption and everything, but we will elucidate that in a distinct driving video, which I will of course push out a bit later, so you genuinely learn all the crucial details about the vehicle. But having 3 charging stops over 1900 kilometers. That appears oddly to me. That can't possibly be true. Here, we're confronting a fundamental, iconic issue for the electric mobility industry. Electric vehicles are absolutely key, which is the primary reason I believe Tesla has been highly successful. They just really fail to manage, at least not on a significant large scale, to properly and effectively design the route planner accordingly, with a few notable exceptions. That it's truly realistic telling me how many stops I should expect here. It's going to be the same again, where I start driving and then end up with way more stops, because clearly the system is based on the ideal WLTP consumption and not on the actual usage. Here we now have a wonderful route through the hairpin bends, and that of course is then the real everyday test. How does it perform there? And just as I mentioned at the beginning, it's just like you step into this particular car and it seriously screams like, hey, come on, have a blast and have fun with me. Let's go on a long road trip together with me. Take me on a wonderfully extended journey, and really, the car doesn't need to hide itself anywhere at all. It's not in any way a cheap entry-level car that makes a lot of compromises. Quite the opposite, actually. So, right now, I'm currently in the single motor version. In the single motor variant, meaning rear-wheel drive with the large battery on board. So, not nearly the acceleration you can get with the performance variant. It's just utterly absurd what's possible with performance. But these SEP traveling up and down the railroads are truly wonderful, demonstrating really nice acceleration there. And what I generally, so this whole balance of how the throttle pedal is tuned, how the brake pedal is tuned, how the acceleration then, so to speak, engages here, really nice, but also not jerky, but really pulls it up nicely. And then also the steering feel, an absolute dream. So somehow they've done something a bit different here, I think. With the steering wheel, or the steering. You can adjust that to whether soft, medium, or a bit harder. Generally speaking, you can wonderfully handle the steering wheel, also the whole feel of the steering wheel in this. I'll just say now, the leather alternative feels very high quality, and the fact that it's slightly flattened somehow helps with steering. I've seldom had such an incredibly great time driving through those winding roads as I've experienced with this one. It's somewhat of a unique crossover SUV, a genuine real piece of work, but meant in the most positive way possible. And then there's also the suspension system to carefully think about. Yeah, with the suspension, opinions can sometimes be a bit divided. Personally, I really like it because it tends to be set up a bit more on the comfortable side. You see, it's not really a sporty suspension, but it isn't totally mushy or anything like that either. I find it precisely in the middle, yet it seems to lean more towards being just a bit comfortably soft. When you drive over bumps, you get this feeling like you're beautifully floating over the bump. It's a bit odd when you actually have the performance version, the one with incredible acceleration around the corners, letting you drive really sportily. Then the suspension is essentially tuned the same way, so it's naturally adjusted for the performance variant, but it eventually offers a similar feel. That could, well, I believe, bother some who say, hey, if I'm going to buy such a performance vehicle, this variant, then I also want it to feel a bit kind of like a board on the road. so I can take corners without feeling like I'm almost thrown out of the curve, now slightly exaggerated. Electric vehicles generally have these cool advantages because the center of gravity is so low, it's like you're a magnet on the road. Of course, what's absolutely crucial is if I'm not driving off-road or not on those twisty, winding roads there, then I usually might be driving for hours and hundreds of kilometers on the wide highways, and there, of course, the driver assistance systems have to be on point, and I'm going to test those now. A good electric car must also have effective regenerative braking, meaning when you ease off the accelerator, it quickly decelerates and recovers energy back into the battery to effectively extend the range, significantly boost the efficiency, and I think the EX30 accomplishes this quite well. I like this recuperation, and it's truly possible to do this one-pedal driving, which you can turn off, by the way, if it's not your thing, but I love it and have always used it in the city. Worked wonderfully. So just in time before the traffic light, for instance, just ease off the accelerator and it stops right at the traffic light, just like that. It's kind of a game you've got to figure out how to sort of balance it, but it works flawlessly, and essentially you only need the brake, I would say, in situations where you really need to brake a bit harder. In normal driving, you can just play with the throttle, which I think is really great. And now, if I'm really on a long journey, then of course I'd like to use the autopilot feature here in the Pilot, the assistance systems, that is, it keeps the lane. I am planning to do that right now. Wait, I actually need to experiment just a little bit with this. Bam, that's how it's done. And then you can see it beautifully on the screen. Then this D turns green here, and over here you can clearly see the car. I can easily make that adjustment here with the plus and minus on the steering wheel. Yes, we need to take a look. We're here in Spain, and currently, as far as I can see, yeah, of course, I'm gripping the steering wheel quite nicely. Always keep your hands on the wheel. Sometimes you have to push back a bit, yes, just a little, so it knows that, but it's all wonderful. Now, I'm setting it to exactly 90 here, and it holds well. But it's not exactly 90, given the adaptive cruise control, so if there's someone ahead, you can adjust that too. How close it gets to them, and then, like this, now it's doing well. We just had the situation, it was just at 90, now it has changed to 100. That's a bit unfortunate, which was, of course, awesome in the Mercedes EQE. One must say, it adjusts speed automatically based on the current situation, or the VW IDs do that too, automatically adjusting speed based on the current. Speed regulation, essentially the cruise control, but I have to do it manually now. Still, it might be added later through software updates. It's possible they might add something like that later. After all, software updates can be done wirelessly at any time through the built-in cellular connection, so I'll adjust it a bit now, bumping this up to 100. By the way, on the steering wheel, I have essentially a combination of touch buttons and real physical buttons, which might not thrill everyone. So this section here, when pressed in this manner or that, it depresses not as individual buttons, rather the entire panel presses down. It's kind of a compromise, like somehow we want to save on buttons by using a touch surface, yet it still should feel like a real button. I think they've done a pretty good job with it. It's easy to get along with. Yeah, and now essentially I can drive long distances on the highway, really relaxed with the assistance system activated. And okay, I haven't driven hundreds of kilometers, but I've been at it for quite a while and it's working really well indeed. So there you are, smoothly cruising along, feeling quite relaxed, and you can even occasionally take your foot off the accelerator for a little bit and gently drift away, enjoying Barcelona. Now, we're getting to a very important aspect for many, and of course generally crucial for electric cars. What's the vehicle's power consumption? What's its overall range? How quickly can I fully recharge it? So, when it comes to consumption, it's naturally tricky. You're charging, of course, a Volvo, and that's something other electric car manufacturers like to do as well. Straight to Barcelona, because here it's a beautiful 25 degrees and the battery, of course, loves that especially. So that means naturally you tend to get good efficiency from the car. That's why I can only share my experiences with you right now, which usually occur under very warm, favorable temperatures. In winter, it could be a different story. That would need a follow-up. I'd have to conduct an additional test. But currently, it's showing here, since the last reset, 17 kilowatt hours, which is 16.9 per 100 kilometers. Here it is, 17.2 kilowatt per 100 kilometers. Well, okay, but that wouldn't be entirely representative. So I would say we were roughly at 18 kilowatts. That perhaps could be stated per 100 kilometers. Roughly calculated, that would mean a range of 270 kilometers with the smaller battery. Genuinely realistic, even with a blend of highway and urban driving. So combined in a certain sense. Sure, if you're just driving around in the city, you'll definitely get more out of it. If you're maybe just on the highway, maybe 10-20 kilometers less, depending on your driving style. But 270 I'd say is a good average with the small battery. With the larger one, you could possibly reach about 350 kilometers in the summer, as mentioned. Combined highway, city, I believe that's a solid value for the price and what else you're getting with this car. Knocks you back, but I would certainly say that's pretty okay. Now, of course, it's also extremely important to consider how quickly the car actually recharges, because the range is indeed a significant thing. I'd almost say we're already at a rather good level overall with electric mobility. But the charging speed is of course crucial, and it can charge at, I believe, a maximum of 153, so just over 150 kilodalrs with the large battery. And with the smaller battery, the standard one, it is able to charge up to a maximum of 135 kilowatts. Yes, well, how many kW? That's not really the point. The question is, how long do I have to wait then? And there's always the value when I'm on the highway, I plug it into the bar at a long stretch with 10% into the fast charger and charge it up to 80%. And that takes somewhere between 26 and 27 minutes. So we are under the magical 30 minutes. I always say waiting around patiently to recharge for approximately up to 30 minutes is perfectly okay. Anything over 30 minutes can really start to bug you, especially if, for instance, you're driving from Barcelona to Berlin, let's say, 1900 kilometers. I'd have to make like 9 charging stops, right, with the big battery. Then we always end up under that magical 30-minute mark. How does Volvo manage to create a vehicle with, let's say, such a solid, actually good technical setup at such a, well, I would say a fair price for that? That, of course, is only possible because the vehicle runs on a technical base from Geely. Geely is a Chinese company, yes, and also the Volvo EX30 is produced in China. Just like the Smart #1, the Smart #3, as well as a Polestar 2 or Polestar 3, and so on and so forth. So it's not just cars from China if they bear a Chinese name, but also more cars are being produced in China. And in this particular case, the very clear advantage is that they all share a common platform. So for example, the Seeker one, the Smart #1, and also this one here. And this of course leads to economies of scale, savings on prices, and so on and so forth. So saving costs. Every time I got into the car during the 2 days of test driving, I must say, my grin just got bigger and bigger. It's easy, it's just fun. You get in, you feel positive, you're really looking forward to starting the drive. When you start driving, does everything just mesh from start to finish? It wasn't just my impression, but also that of the tall man standing behind the camera. He really quite liked it as well. I'd even go as far as to say that when the car is finally delivered in the early part of 2024, it will definitely be considered as one of the most interesting and innovative electric vehicles available on the market at that precise moment. I don't want to create an exact ranking now because I need to drive it a bit more for that. By the way, I told Volvo I want to drive it longer. So I will be driving it around for a couple of months, and then I'll give you a thorough, proper real-life usage test report. But it's actually incredibly exciting. You simply must go and check it out. And you've got to subscribe to the channel, that way you won't miss any thrilling videos, like me zooming around with cars in Barcelona.